Hey there everybody, Ray Carcillo with Classic Game Room here, and today we're looking at Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn for the Nintendo Wii. Set 3 years after the end of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance from the Nintendo GameCube, Radiant Dawn sees the continent of Tellius trying to rebuild itself, especially the nations of Crimea and Dayan, who were the main factions in the Mad King's War from the first game. Crimea may have been victorious due to Ike and the Grail mercenaries, and their animal shape-shifting Laguz allies, but was so decimated by the war that it had to leave Dayan in the hands of the much larger Benyan Empire. As Crimea deals with political strife following the war, Dayan is basically enslaved by the Benyan Empire occupying force. As Crimea deals with political strife following the war, Dayan is basically enslaved by the Benyan occupying force, and so the game opens up with you controlling only one of the main characters from the original game, a band of Dayan rebels led by Sothe and the mystical healer Micaiah, who are trying to overthrow their occupiers and reclaim the land as their own. As the game progresses, all the playable characters from the first game except Largo will return at some point or another, as the Dawn Brigade's quest for freedom will set in motion events that are far larger than any individual faction could have ever imagined, as the entire continent will be thrown into war. Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn uses the exact same combat system as its GameCube predecessor, by being a turn-based strategy game set up on a square-based grid, where you move your characters and attack as if the world were a giant game board of some kind. From recruiting neutral people into your party by having the right person speak to them, to the rock, paper, scissors system for weaponry, anyone familiar with the first game or the Japanese series that has begun to be ported to American handhelds will immediately be able to embrace this game. A nice feature for the game is that it did not get wrapped up in the gimmicks of the Wii, and operates with simply the Wiimote being held sideways like an original NES controller. Since only a few buttons are really needed to move your characters and attack, anything more would have been gaudy and taken away from the intense gameplay that Fire Emblem can conjure up. Also returning to this game is the Fire Emblem staple of if a character dies in a battle, they die for the rest of the game. That feature alone makes this one of the most difficult strategy series out there, as a careless strategist may face overwhelming odds later in the game, if not wary of the matchups he comes up against. Much like I did in Path of Radiance when I was unfamiliar with the series. In order to help remedy this, since Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn automatically will put you in some more difficult than usual situations, even for Fire Emblem standards, a quick save feature that can be activated during a player's turn has been included. Along with this, if you have a save file from Path of Radiance available on a GameCube memory card when you start the game, you can gain character bonuses to those who are returning from the first game. These extra couple of features help to balance out what may be the most difficult Fire Emblem game to date. Aside from being a strategy gamer's dream come true, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn is also just plain gorgeous to look at. Aside from the 3D maps that you fight on, fully animated cutscenes at the start and end of each of the 4 main sections of the story flesh out the characters even more so than in Path of Radiance. Include a tremendous musical score to set the mood, and great voice acting for the cutscenes, and Radiant Dawn is a treat for your senses. The only area that Radiant Dawn may lack in is replay value. Although strategy fans could be drawn in to redo certain missions by mixing up character rotations or trying to make sure their entire party survives the entire game, once the story is complete, there isn't much to bring you back to this, at least not initially. Still though, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn is an instant classic that I highly recommend for strategy fans out there, and makes you wonder why it took so long for the series to make its way over to the States, Europe, and Australia from Japan in the first place.